Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're out the range to talk about a very affordable thermal sight that's going to give you a lot of features, has a great build quality, and it's not, again, super expensive. So this little sight that I'm going to talk about today is called the Hydra HS225. It's made by DNT, and it comes to market right at $1,000. Now this is really interesting because of all the features, which we'll go over in this video, and the size. It's only like 13 ounces. It's very small. This is just an eye cup. The actual unit's very small, and it's multi-use, so you can use it 3 different ways, and we're going to go over all of that. And we'll talk about some of the other options that are available out there. This one is a lower resolution option, which is the more affordable, but they offer different versions of this sight all the way up to 640 resolution, which will give you better graphics if you're going to share them on something like social media. But we'll delve into all those details here in today's video. Plus, I'll show you some older thermals that I've had for many years. I've been doing this for like a decade, playing with different thermals, hunting with thermals, and they definitely have advantages, but they also have some weaknesses. Again, we'll talk about all that. So let's get started with today's video talking about the Hydra HS225. A lot of folks ask me, how can I get involved in the firearms business in that particular community? And one of the best ways to do that is to become a gunsmith. Every gunsmith I know is just overbooked with work. It's a very good living. And so if you would like to become a gunsmith, you need to go to a gunsmithing school or become an apprentice for an existing gunsmith. But Modern Gun School is an accredited college that also works with veterans in the GI Bill, where you can go and get a degree from accredited college in gunsmithing and then go out and start your own gunsmithing business, which I think is a really great option. Again, throughout my entire life, gunsmiths have always been able to earn a really good living, assuming they have a really strong work ethic. So please check out Modern Gun School. I do have a link in the video description below. So as I've said, I've done the thermal game for a long time. And so I've had experience with a number of different sights, a lot of high-end sights. Now, going back 10 years in time, thermals were expensive, kind of like night vision. But because thermals use CMOS sensors typically, that technology is constantly improving and the cost is constantly coming down. Unlike tubed night vision, it's always going to be expensive. But when you move into CMOS type sensors, the technology can evolve, the software can evolve, the chips can evolve, and that cost will come down because you're not having to actually manufacture tubes, which is a very expensive process. And so the thermals have improved. The quality has improved, the imagery has improved, the software has improved. They've gotten smaller, lighter, more efficient with their batteries. And so here's an example of an early Arma sight, and this thing was expensive. This thing is a 640 resolution, which means it records at 640, and it also displays at 640. But with the higher resolution, it means when you download those videos or still images, they're going to have better resolution on a computer screen or something like that. When you're talking about lower resolutions, like the Hydra that we're going to talk about today, it still looks great on the little tiny screen that's in here. The 256 pixels looks really good, but when I download it and I want to share it with you guys, it's going to look more pixelated on your computer screen or even on your phone because it's a larger display. So anyway, this is an example of a sight, and these things, again, like $6,000 or more back in the day, very expensive. And then later, and that's not one of my earliest ones, but that's just an example of an earlier sight. This is a more modern sight, but you can see it still has a boxy type profile to it. It's very big, has quick release batteries on it. This is a Pulsar, and it's very handy. This is a great sight. The batteries, you can get big, super big batteries on it. You can hunt all night with this thing. I've done that. Very, very full featured, easily adjusted, every feature you could imagine. And this thing, again, is going to be, $4,500 or more. This one is also a 640. But then a more modern, like the current type of thermal that's out there, and this is a full featured thermal from Pulsar. You'll notice it taking on the appearance of a traditional scope. So you have, looks like scope towers here for adjusting elevation and things like that. That's not what any of this is. There are battery compartments or buttons for controlling the sight and things like that, but it has that conventional look. Now, this hump out here kind of breaks that profile, and this doesn't look very conventional. But that's because this is a laser rangefinder. So it can find the range to the target, you can feed that into the computer, and then you get a ballistic solution, and that really is handy for hunting, especially at extended ranges. And so, yeah, this thing, again, it's going to be like $6,000 or something like that with all the features, 640 quality and things like that in terms of the image resolution. And so this is an example of a more modern full-featured optic. So that brings us to the Hydra HS225. Now you'll notice this thing is much smaller than the other optics that I've shown you here. Now this one is at 256 resolution, but you can get them all the way up to 640, but you're going to pay more for that. This one right now is going to be right around $999, so that means this is very affordable, and it's going to have pretty much all the same features the others are going to have. And again, we'll talk about that. But since I was showing you the batteries on some of the other ones now, like this, you have 4 123As in here that you have to unscrew this and replace them. You can use rechargeables, but this thing would suck batteries like crazy. By the time you evolve into sights like this, the batteries last much longer, and you'll find that you can hunt pretty much all night with the darn things. And the Hydra is no different. This little tiny thing, they say about 5.5 hours of battery life on a battery. I've experienced over 4 hours of battery life, so it will run a very long time. And then if you want to swap the battery out, you just unscrew this cap here. And this is just a standard rechargeable battery. What do they call these things? They're 18650s. And that just sets inside there. And you can replace it, or you can recharge it through the port over here on the side. Or you can just take the battery out and use a recharger, have 4 or 5 of them sitting around. If you have a couple of these in your pocket, you can hunt for days just leaving the sight on. So in the next segment, let's kind of go over some of the features of this sight and talk more about it. And then I'll also give you a view through the sight. We'll do some shooting with it to give you guys an idea of what I see when I'm shooting through it. It does have a phone app, and you'll be able to, I'm going to record with the phone, everything I see. You can put it into sleep mode. I just woke it up, but it's transmitting in real time through Wi-Fi to the phone app. And so that's how I'm able to record with the phone, but you can also record internally. We'll talk about all that here in a moment. All right, so let's go over some of the features of the HS225. So first of all, you're going to have a cover that flips closed in the front here that's going to protect it. And when you're turning a thermal on, it's best to just leave that cover closed, let it boot completely up, then flip it open. And then you're going to get the best resolution and things like that. Not going to wash it out. Here's your power button. This is going to be a zoom button. Now, these are multifunction buttons. When you get into the menuing system, they'll take on different roles. This button back here is the record button, and this is the actual menu button in the middle. So you just press and hold that, and it'll bring up the menu, and we'll go into the menu here in a second. Now, as I mentioned, this does have Wi-Fi capabilities. So when you go to pull video or stills off of this, you can do that with the phone app. So you can pull them straight down into your phone library. Then you can, like I'm a Mac user, so I can move those video files around very easily between devices. But you can also plug it in with the USB-C port over here. And with the 32 gigabyte internal recording, you can just pull those files directly off. It'll treat it like a thumb drive, if you will, when you plug it into your computer, to go into that connectivity mode. I've already talked about the 18650 battery that it uses, which is just a standard rechargeable battery. Again, 5.5 hours or so of battery life, which is really good. I mean, I'm happy with that. And the fact that I can quickly change those batteries and keep some in my pocket, I can go out on a week-long hunting trip and have 4 or 5 of those batteries with me, and I'll be just fine. I won't have to worry about recharging my sight. Now, out here, we have the focus ring. And so this, depending on what range you're shooting at, this is going to bring the target into sharp focus. Back here, this is the objective focus. So your little screen is right here. And this is what you're looking at, just a standard, think of it like a television screen, if you will, an LCD television screen inside here. And this will bring it into focus for your particular eye. And so if you have corrective lenses or astigmatism or something like that, you can play with this ring to get it nice and sharp. And then here, out with this ring out here, you're going to adjust the focus, again, for different ranges. So let's go into the menuing system. So you're going to have different palettes, and a palette is a color scheme. All right, so you'll have, my favorite is white hot. I also will use black hot, depending on the situation. You have different types of reticles. You have holdover reticles, you have simple reticles, dot reticles, and we'll kind of go through some of those in the menuing system. And then you can also change the color of the reticle and things like that. So let's quickly jump into the menuing system here. And I just hold down the menu button in the center, and that'll bring up the menu. All right, so at the very top, we have clip-on. And what is clip-on? Well, this is a multifunction thermal, so you can use it 3 different ways. You can use it as a handheld binocular, so you can kind of go out and scan the woods, not even attached to a rifle. The base on this uses a standard ACOG style base, so it just has simple screws in the bottom, and you can put quick detach mounts and stuff like that on there, or you can just take it off and again use it as a handheld. You can also use it as a quick detach clip-on, which would then set in front of a conventional optic, and that will, when you put it in clip-on mode, that will allow you to use a standard crosshair reticled standard lensed type scope and still be able to see in the thermal or IR spectrum. And so then you can just unclip it, And then, of course, you have it as an actual rifle sight. So we have it obviously configured as a rifle sight here. I don't really use clip-ons. I don't care for them. It just makes things clunky. If I'm going to use a thermal, I just want to use it as a thermal. And this thing at 13 ounces and this really small size is very lightweight and handy. All right, so I can then scroll down. The next option is connections. And when you go into connections, you'll see Wi-Fi. And that is, again, how you'll set it up to talk to your phone. I can back out of that. Just hold down the center button. I'll back you out one menu item. And then I'm going to scroll down to the next one, which is reticle zeroing. And when you go into this menu, you're going to have different profiles that you can save. So if you want to move this between firearms, you can make different profiles for each of those firearms and name them. And then you can zero it to each one of them and then use a QD mount. So very, very handy in that regard. And then you have the ability to adjust your X and Y axes. So you can adjust up, down, left, and right. And while you're doing it, you can fire. You can see the round hit with the thermal. And then you can make adjustments, move your reticle over to cover up the bullet hole. And then once you got the reticle over where the bullet actually hit, now the sight is zeroed. So you can zero one of these in like 3 or 5 rounds, depending on how good you are at doing something like that. So very quick and easy to zero. All right, I'm going to hold down that menu button again and take me back one menu item or one menu level. Actually, I'll just go down and click. Oops, go back to A here. Go down to exit. All right, and then next you have your reticle settings. And so if you go into this menu, you have different reticles. And so you'll see 8 different reticle setups, and I'll just kind of scroll through them here very slowly. Reticle 2, here's reticle 3, 4, reticle 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then you have the option to hide the reticle, which just makes it go away, which is useful for if you're using it as a clip-on or if you're using it as a monocular handheld. All right, so I kind of like the first reticle, the first focal plane, FFP reticle. And so this is going to allow me to do holdovers, which is very, very useful, especially if you're hunting, and that's how I use these types of sights. And then you have your reticle colors. And so you can go red, green, yellow, black, and white. Now, some thermals will have auto adjusting. I've played with that. It's kind of good, but it can also get a little confusing where it'll jump between like black and white depending on the contrast that it sees downrange. But for me, I'll pick something like red, or if I want to run white hot. So what you see right now is white hot. So the target that I'm aiming at is hotter than its surrounding area. It's steel painted black, so it's picking up that sun's heat, and it's showing as white hot. And I can change this to a black reticle, which then will work just fine. There's black with a white hot. So if I'm looking for something that's living, like if I'm hunting, a black reticle would work. But if I just want a general reticle, red works great in this type of a contrast, either black hot or white hot, but play around with whatever works best for your eyes. All right. And then I'm going to go ahead and select red, come back. And then we have picture-in-picture settings, so you can have picture-in-a-picture setup if that's not distracting to you. I don't use that because it is distracting to me. And let's see, recoil activated recording. So this is kind of cool. Once you set it to recoil activated recording mode, and then you can also set the loop time. I think it's 1, 3, and 5 minutes. It'll detect the shot and it'll record. And so it's always recording. I don't know what it buffers, like 10 seconds or 15 seconds or something like that. So when it detects that shot, it's going to record everything and then save it and then stop when you're done. But you also have a manual record button here. You just press and hold. You'll see a little record icon pop up, and then it's recording internally and manually. All right, and let's see. Next, we have image super resolution, and basically this is just a sharpening app, right? So this thing can zoom in from, minimal power, I think 1.5 power, all the way up to 12 power. And the more you zoom in, the more pixelated it gets, but you can adjust that sharpness using this setting and other settings in here to kind of try to reduce what that pixelation looks like to you using this particular image finder. Now, it's not going to really help much on a larger screen, but it certainly does make a noticeable difference here on the site itself. And then thermal image settings, and we can go in here and change thermal imaging modes. We can set the nuke, which is when it starts to get, it starts to brighten or darken, it'll nuke every so often, and that'll reset everything, and everything will come back, and the contrast will look good, and everything will look fine. All thermal sights will do that. You have different palettes you can choose. So we have white hot, black hot, red hot, and iron hot. And I'm going to back out of that. And you can also quickly navigate through those with the buttons up here without having to go into the menuing system. You have image contrast, which should be self-explanatory, image brightness, image sharpness, and then hotspot tracking. Now I'm going to enable hotspot tracking here really quick. And I think I enabled it. Let me go back in there. Yeah, there we go. All right, I have it on. All right, so now what you're going to see, as I scan around, you'll see a little red dot floating out there. It's tracking the largest white area, which is the hottest area in my field of view. So that little dot's tracking the target. It's going to bring my eye's attention to whatever it is out there. Now it's picked up the target out at 150. As I go out to 200, I'll probably have to zoom in a bit. I have to do that outside the menu. It's still tracking the 150 because it's still in view. But if I zoom in, it's then going to pick up the only item out there at 200 and so forth and so on. Now, I'm not going to use that because I don't really feel that I need it. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. Back out one menu item again. Back out again. And then function settings. Here you can go into how, like the power off and things like that, how frequently you want that to happen, the auto power off, the loop recording, the audio recording. It does record audio. So when you're in record mode and it's recording the shot, whatever conversations you have, the gunshot, all that is recorded internally. And then it has a gyroscope, which is going to tell you if you're canted one way or the other. It's helpful if you're shooting extended ranges, especially if you're using that reticle that allows you to do holdovers. You're going to want to make sure your rifle is perfectly vertical, because if you cant it one way or the other, your shot's going to be off target. The further you go out, the worse it gets. And then screen brightness. All right, back up one more. System settings. And that's goes into languages and formatting the internal storage, restoring factory defaults, and checking your available storage, seeing how much you've used, and then version. And of course, you can update this with firmware updates. And then we're back to the main clip-on menu, the first menuing item. All right, so that gives you an idea of some of the features. Now, as you can tell, I was quickly and easily moving through the menus just using these buttons here on the top. And it's very, very intuitive. I really didn't even need to read the owner's manual because I've used thermals before in the past. It was just very, very easy for me to pick this thing up and go, oh, wow, this is how I navigate through this. So if you just spend an hour with this thing after you pick one up, you're going to find that you're going to very easily learn how to use the menuing system. It's actually quite intuitive. All right, so let's do a little bit of shooting with this bad boy, and I'll show you what it looks like, because you'll basically see a little bit of your muzzle flash. You'll see some of the recoil. Usually you'll see a little bit of static, and this is true of all thermals I've had for the last decade. You're going to see all that, but let's do some shooting with it and show you guys what it actually looks like. If you're wondering about the rifle that we're using today, this is a Desert Tech rifle. This one uses their quad stack magazines, and this one has the new Desert Tech upper on it. We'll do a full video on this rifle later, but both Jason and I have been using these rifles, and they're actually really cool. And the quad stack magazines are very neat. And we've done a video on the rifle when it was just lower, but again, Desert Tech's now making the complete rifle. And we'll talk about that in a later video. All right, so let's go ahead and load it up. We got some Federal 55 grain American Eagle. This is the stuff we're shooting today. I want to thank our friends over at Federal for supplying the ammunition free of charge to the channel. It really helps out here. It would be our highest reoccurring cost. And I've been working with them for years, and I've been shooting their ammunition since I was a kid in high school. So a big fan of Federal ammunition. Let's go ahead and load her up. And now you're going to see everything that I see. I'm recording this with my phone app. And now it just nuked, so that's what that flash was. But it's very fast. Some of the older thermals, they didn't nuke very quickly. And it was a little bit distracting. This happens very quick with the HS225. All right, so now you can see on the left-hand side, as I cant the rifle, it's telling you the degree of cant. And again, that's going to help you get this thing perfectly set up for longer distance shots. Up top, you're going to see the magnification. Right now, it's at 3 power. You see my Wi-Fi connection. The mic is on. That means it's recording audio internally when it's set to record. And then it gives a time, which I haven't adjusted, and it's showing current battery power. All right, so the the power button right up here in front is going to be multifunction. So it not only turns the sight on, but if I press that while I'm looking through the sight, it puts it to sleep. It goes dark, I press it again, and it wakes back up. So if you know you're going to be sitting in a tree stand for a while or something like that, just put it to sleep. And then when you're ready to shoot, just tap that button, and she comes back to life, and it's going to conserve that battery power. All right, and then if I push this button in the rear and hold it, you're going to see in the top left corner, it starts showing a record symbol. So we're 4-5 seconds into the recording. All right, so I've just manually caused it to start recording internally. And it's also recording over on the phone. All right, so let's do a little bit of shooting. Now I can also cycle with the front button up here. I can cycle through my magnification. So I just hit the button and I just went to 4.5 power. And I'm looking at a 150-yard target. I just went to 6 power, 9 power, 12 power, and then 3 power. 3 power is the lowest setting. I said 1.5 earlier. I was incorrect. That's a different site. This one's 3 power at its lowest setting. All right, so let's do a little bit of shooting here. We got a target out there at 150. And that's my 50-yard target. That's my 100-yard target. And so that's really, really cool. Now, if I wanted to zoom in, I just hit the little zoom button and boom, there's 4 power, there's 6 power, so I can bring it in close if I see something out there. That's 200. And I can turn that recording off. Now it might be conflicting because I do have it set to auto record based upon shot detection. So that's really, really handy. I think that the footprint of this is nice. Now, again, you can get this with higher resolution sensors. This one is the lower resolution at 256 pixels. But if you get a 640, again, you're going to pay more for that, but you're going to see a sharper image, especially, again, when you download that to your computer. All right. So real quick, before we close out the video, I want to show you what those color palettes look like as I cycle through them. So this little center button right here is going to allow me to cycle through the palette settings very quickly without having to go into the menuing system. And so as I'm looking through here, I just hit that center button once and you'll see it pop up black hot. Now the black hot is interesting. I mean, it's definitely got good contrast. You can quickly see things that are warm out there, but you'll also notice the background is very bright. And so if you're at night and you have the white background primarily, you're going to have a lot of light being cast out of the ocular side here. It's one of the reasons I don't like it. And then here you have red hot. This is very Predator-ish, like the movie. Not a big fan. It's just cluttered for me, but some people like it. Let's see, we have iron hot, which is kind of similar, just kind of slightly different colors. Again, not a fan, but some people like it. And then white hot, and this is what I primarily use. And so you'll see it has great contrast. The background is mostly dark, so it's not going to get a lot of extra light cast coming through the ocular side display. All right, so what are my thoughts of this thing? Again, I've been shooting this thing for a while, been playing with it. I love the battery life, I love the features, I love the size, I love the weight, and the price is hard to compete with. I mean, at $9.99, that is really affordable for a full functioning thermal sight. But again, if you want to spend a bit more money, you want to go $1,500+, you can start increasing the resolution, and that's going to be great if you want to share your thermal exploits, you know, hunting and whatnot on social media. But if not, you're just primarily interested in using a thermal and don't care so much about the recordings or sharing those on social media and getting the highest resolution possible, just go with a site like this. Now, this is the lowest resolution site I currently have that I use. Again, I usually go for the 640s, but I am perfectly fine with this. But the reason I go for the 640s is because I work in social media, so I want to share those files with you guys and let you see them. But anyway, overall, I think it's a great value. I think the construction of this is outstanding, has a solid aluminum or an aluminum housing. Obviously, it's not solid, but so it has, you know, it's not like plastic or anything like that. Very solid. The dials, like when you're focusing and things like that, have the perfect amount of resistance. And then I also like the fact that it uses a standard footprint, so you can pick up, you know, ACOG type quick detach mounts and things like that. So you can move it up, down, and then take it off very quickly if you want to put a different optic on there, or use it as a clip-on and whatnot, things like that. So in terms of features and price and all that stuff, I just don't know why, if you're interested in a thermal, you wouldn't consider DNT. If you have any questions about the DNT, HS225 Hydra. You can ask those questions down below. I do try to stick around for the first couple of days after a video goes live to answer any questions you guys may have. If you'd like to support us here at the Military Arms channel so we can continue to bring you content like this, please consider becoming part of our Patreon family. There is a link in the video description below. Also, right here on YouTube, you got the thanks and subscribe button underneath the video player you're watching right now. Hit either one of those buttons. You can help support us right here on YouTube in the age of demonetization. Thank you for 17 years of support. Swing by, check out Copper Custom, and we'll talk to you guys soon.